Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we are finally talking about Hogwarts Legacy. Welcome back to the channel, and before we get started, do me a huge favor and like the video and subscribe to the channel. And first off, I am like super late on this video. I ordered the physical edition and it got delayed in the mail. And then on top of that, we went on vacation for a couple days. And then even on top of that, the game is way bigger than I thought it was originally going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be like a 20-hour experience. No, it took me like over 40 hours to beat this game. So if you guys are watching this video now, you guys are freaking awesome. So right off the bat, I'll say that I am not the biggest Harry Potter fan. In fact, I'm kind of like an average watcher, I guess, an average enjoyer. I watched all of the movies. I mean, I've seen all the movies and I read the books when I was in high school, but that's pretty much it. Now, as far as like the Harry Potter games, the only one that I've actually played was the Lego Harry Potter game, and I didn't even finish it. So going into Hogwarts Legacy, honestly, I was really not expecting a whole lot. I had watched like the trailers and some of the gameplay like trailers, and if I'm being 100% honest, it didn't really sell me, and I was like, you know, maybe. My expectations weren't super high, and if I'm being honest, I really didn't think the game was going to be all that great. And oh man, could I have not been more wrong. I'm going to try to keep this video as spoiler-free as I can, so I won't go super in-depth into the story. But Hogwarts Legacy takes place about 200 years, if I remember correctly, before the events of the Harry Potter story. You come in as a 5th year, and you're much older than everybody else. And it's kind of cool because you create your whole character, how he looks. The one thing I didn't quite like is that I felt like all the voice options for the like male, I didn't check the female, but they all kind of sounded the same. Just like they, I don't know, put like an auto tone, or what do you call it, like a pitch slider. They made one voice super deep and one kind of higher pitch, but it sounded like the same voice. Other than that, the actual like character creator was pretty fun. You are a 5th year student. You show up late on top of it to the hat sorting ceremony, and you know your boy chose Slytherin. Long story short, you possess like an ancient magic, which is key to stopping this evil goblin named Ranrock. Most of the game, at least the main missions of the game, all revolve around this ancient magic and how you use it to stop Ranrock, and like they all kind of gear towards that. Along with the main missions, there are several side missions, several cool like side little stories and like class assignments. Some of these side missions that are really fun include Sebastian's side quest, which was really fun. His definitely takes a much darker like story part to it, dealing with all of the Deathly Hallows, or not Deathly Hallows, my bad, the Unforgivable Curses. Literally all 3 of them, they're in this game. You could use all of them, and they're so fun. My only complaint is that because I wanted to be super evil right off the bat, my only complaint is that I wish that I could learn these Unforgivable Curses super early. Unfortunately, you learn like some like the torture one and then the mind control one, like the Avada Kedavra one that from the movies, you don't learn to pretty much like the end of the game. And some of the class assignments are pretty fun as well. They revolve around the assignments that you get from the various classes. They usually have you do various, you know, tasks, and at the end of doing all those, the teacher will teach you a new spell. Another one that I wanted to mention was Poppy's side quest. Hers was a lot of fun, dealing with like the centaurs and the poachers, and it has dragons in it, so that was super cool. One thing that I absolutely loved about Hogwarts Legacy that I didn't expect to like was the gameplay. The gameplay here was incredible and a lot of fun. Basically, you have 31 different spells with, I believe, 23 of them that could be slotted to like a spell wheel type thing that you can interchange with the D-pad. The other ones are kind of like the spell to, you know, unlock doors, the spell to block. So it's like you don't really need to put those onto the weapon wheel. But you have 23 of them, and they're all super unique. Like, all of them matter. There was never a spell that was just kind of like you learn and you're like, okay, I'm never really gonna use this. Like, they all had a purpose, and I really enjoyed that. You can tell that the developers for Hogwarts Legacy definitely went with quality over quantity, Because, for instance, there's like Forspoken that's got like over 100 different spells, and although I did like the spell system in that game, there was definitely way more spells than I even used. Here, there's nice, short, and sweet, and they all had a purpose, and I loved it. For example, a lot of the enemies can only be taken down with specific spells, or you get further in the game and a lot of enemies will have different colored shields, so you'd have to use those magics that color coordinated with their shields. So a lot of the offensive spells were all red, a lot of like the, you know, pushing away, pulling, flipping, those were all like the purple, and then you had yellow, which was like slowing someone down or freezing them. So that was a lot of fun because it kept you switching up spells, so you couldn't just use, you know, Expelliarmus the whole time. You couldn't just use those attack spells. You had to switch it up, otherwise you wouldn't defeat the enemy. And that's one thing that I just really liked about the combat. It always made me switching and using all of the spells in my arsenal instead of just a select few. One of my favorite things was you can, I forget the name of the spell, but you can turn things into different things. Like, for example, you could turn a goblin into an exploding barrel, and then you can pick up that exploding barrel and literally launch it into another enemy, and now they both explode and die. And there's like a few other things, like a spider will be digging and you could do Depulso and it'll slam its head and it'll get its head stuck in the ground, and then you could just like spam attacks on it. Or if you had a goblin that was shooting its crossbow, like a ranged crossbow at you, you can literally launch it out of its hand, grab it, and then slam the crossbow right back into his face. Same with like axes and swords. And coupled with that, your arsenal of spells, you have your ancient magic, which only you possess. They don't really explain too much what the ancient magic is, but it is coupled with the combat here where you do enough damage and enemies will shoot off little white orbs and you go pick those up. And like I said, I'm not sure what it is, because sometimes you know, conjure lightning coming down, or you'll slam things to the ground or slam things into like barrels into people. So I'm not real sure what the ancient magic specifically is, but it is just more tools to your arsenal. So like I was talking with the spells earlier, like I said, a lot of them were very specific and they all mattered, especially like not just combat but the puzzles as well. You couldn't just use a few different spells and get through the puzzles. A lot of the puzzles required you to use various different spells. You would have to float something up or flip something around then float it up. So it just was cool because all of the spells mattered. I felt like I definitely used all of them quite frequently. One of the downsides I would have to say with the combat as well is just that the enemy variety. Although the combat was absolutely fun and I can sit here and talk all day about the combat, the enemy variety was definitely lacking. It literally consists of like trolls, goblins, spiders, and you know, a few humanoid enemies like evil wizards or whatever, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Eventually you do get like different types of goblins and different types of spiders, but at the end of the day you're still fighting a spider, you're still fighting a goblin. So I do wish that the enemy variety was just a tad bit better. Because the combat was so great, I didn't really mind as much when I, you know, was fighting my 100th spider and my 100th goblin, because the spells and the combat was so fun. Another thing that I wanted to touch on here in this video was the like way you travel in the game. You have a few different ways you can fast travel with the Flu Flames, which is nice, but my con with that is more or less just every time you traveled, the dang Flu Flame thing was like, back in my day kind of thing. Like, travel was so much harder before I invented Flu Flames. Like, it just got so annoying fast traveling that way. And I was like, ugh. Same with like your character. Every time you went to like Hogsmeade, he's like, all roads lead to Hogsmeade. Or every time you talk to a vendor, it's like, can I see what you have for sale? Like, it's just like, they had like the same 4 lines no matter where you went. And every time you traveled, it was the same 4 lines. But that was just like kind of like annoying, nitpicky stuff. Another way of travel is the brooms. And at first, I thought the brooms were just super janky. And I just did not really enjoy it. But after I messed with it for a couple more hours, I finally got the hang of it, and I actually quite enjoyed the brooms. Now, on the other side, you have the mounts, which the mounts were super cool. You can get like the Hippogriff, you can ride some of the Thestrals, I believe they're called, like the kind of the scary looking like demon horses that you can only see if you've had tragedy or something like that. And there's a few other like story related mounts that I don't necessarily want to spoil because they are freaking epic. But those mounts, I feel like were so much slower than the brooms. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but I feel like when I was just traveling around Hogwarts, there's a few different times where I'm like, oh, well, let me just ride there instead of fast travel just so I could see what's on the way. And I just felt like the brooms were way faster than the mounts, although the mounts were way cooler. One of the other things that I do want to talk about in this video is the world of Hogwarts. And it's one of the things that absolutely amazed me was just Hogwarts itself. The castle was just so freaking amazing. I can't tell you how many hours I spent just exploring the castle, running around, seeing like the crazy staircases and just all of the secrets that Hogwarts had. Like, I spent hours. And even as I'm making this video, there are still things within Hogwarts that I have yet to see. Plus, on top of that, it just looks so beautifully done. Like, the quality here was so good. You could see all the details, all the different classrooms and rooms, and it's just, they put a lot of detail in the castle itself, and it definitely paid off because it was absolutely amazing. I also really enjoyed Hogsmeade. Hogsmeade was really cool. It's one of the ones that I remember reading about in the books, and you can kind of see it in the movies where they travel there a few times. But actually going there and visiting Hogsmeade was totally different experience, and I actually really enjoyed it, running around the different shops, especially when you unlock all of the level 3 unlock spell, and you could just get into every single freaking house and room there is within Hogsmeade. A lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it, especially like just the world in general. Outside of Hogwarts and Hogsmeade, there's tons of different like small villages and towns and caves and just things to do in the open world that weren't like, I personally thought they were all fun. Granted, there is a ton of them. Like, I think there's like over 100 Merlin trials and things like that, but they were all fun. They weren't like, oh, here we go, another task to do. A lot of fun things to do in the world, and on top of that, it just looked beautiful and was amazing. Actually, talking about the open world reminded me of something that I had actually totally forgot about until just barely, was the music. Music was so good in here. Whether you were in Hogwarts, Hogsmeade, it really set the tone for what was going on. Like that uppity, cheerful music that when you're in Hogsmeade just made you feel like you're in a Harry Potter universe. It was great, especially when you're out exploring, and the music with boss battles, everything like that. The music department just did a fire job. Now, one of the last things I do want to talk about before wrapping up the video here is the game's performance. Now, I played on the PlayStation 5, and for the most part, I didn't really run into any glitches or hiccups for, I would say, 99% of the game. Now, I was playing, like I said, playing on PS5 and performance mode, if I remember correctly, and like I said, no glitches. I did run into some within like the last 2 hours of the game. There was a few times where the frames dropped significantly, whether I was trying to get on the broom, or like at the end where you're fighting a bunch of different enemies at the same time. I noticed that it dropped quite a bit, but it didn't happen frequently. It happened, you know, it would drop real low for a few seconds and then it would snap back and it would be fine. And then also at the last, like I said, last 2 hours, the game crashed on me twice in one day and then once the day after. But like I said, it was literally like the last 2-ish, 3 hours of the game that it happened. It wasn't most of the game. Like I said, I played over 40 hours. I think I clocked in when I beat the game at like 46 hours, if I remember correctly. It's weird. There's the in-game timer and then there's the PlayStation timer, and they're not the same, so I'm not sure. I'm going off the in-game timer and it says 46. PlayStation says something else. If there was any other glitches or things like that in the game, I specifically didn't notice them, and if they were there, I mean, they didn't affect the gameplay all that much, other than those crashes at the end. Alright, final thoughts. I think Hogwarts Legacy was incredible. I'm just going to be straight up. I thought it was great, and I'm not even a huge Harry Potter fan, and this made me want to go back and like watch the movies. Like, I had such a good time with it. I think what Hogwarts Legacy did for Harry Potter reminds me, like, this game is similar to like Shadow of Mordor. Like, this is their Shadow of Mordor for the Harry Potter franchise. They did such a good job. Combat was great. The spells were awesome. Yeah, and you could, I keep wanting to say Deadly Sins. You could, not the Deadly Sins, not Deathly Hallows either. The Unforgivable Curses. I don't know why I keep wanting to switch those. But yes, you could use the Unforgivable Curses. That was a lot of fun. All the spells were great. Music was freaking fire. The castle was amazing. and because of those things, I'm going to give Hogwarts Legacy a 9 out of 10. Now, the only things that really I felt like weighed it down for me is some of the dialogue wasn't all that good, like I mentioned earlier. The fast travel I felt was a little bit hard to get into, and some of those glitches and crashes at the end of the game. But overall, I thought this was an amazing experience, and if you have not played Hogwarts Legacy yet, I highly recommend it. And I'm not even a huge Harry Potter fan, and I love this game. Another thing that I feel like after you beat this game, there's a lot of things where you're like, okay, they did such a good job, I wish this, this, and this were in there. Like, I wish that there was a little bit more spells, and now I wish that there was, like Quidditch. I wish that there was Quidditch. I'm not even, like I said, big Harry Potter fan, and if they put Quidditch in here, easy 10 out of 10 for me. Also, a Quidditch DLC would be absolute fire. Anyways, guys, that is going to wrap it up for my review for Hogwarts Legacy. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of the game. And that's going to be it for the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.